It's Mr. Maxwell for Pingree AP Biology. I want to go over some of the remaining objectives we didn't get to in class. And these are the ones that you guys identified that we did not finish. And so I want to address them one at a time. The first one, explain why natural selection doesn't make perfect organisms. Probably the best thing I can have you do is quickly watch this video on eye evolution. So go ahead and take a couple minutes to do that, and then come back to this particular video. So from that video, you should have gathered that evolution basically only works on structures that already exist. It can't do really grand redesigns. It can only work on what it has, and so if there is a stepwise progression of adaptations that have to lead to a different structure, if there's no way to get from point A to point B, it can't happen evolutionarily. And so this is why we have some of the major structural design flaws in things like the eye, where the nerve runs in front of the retina, and other silly things like the nerve that makes the tongue move in giraffes has to go all the way down the neck and then back up the other side of the neck to control the tongue of the giraffe. So lots of examples of this. The other factor is that a lot of times there's more than one selective force that actually is acting on a particular structure. For example, selection for resistance to a toxin might make an animal slower, simply evolutionary trade-offs. And so you can't make a perfect organism. The next one is evidence from biogeography and a number of other locations that suggest common ancestry. And we can look at the fact that there are different animals that fill the same niche, but are in different geographic locations. For example, in Australia, Australia has marsupials. There were no placental animals there, and so all the niches have been filled by marsupial mammals. Whereas in the Americas, we have filled the same niches through evolution, but those niches are filled by mammals that have placentas. Another one of these pieces of evidence is homology. If you look at the anatomy of animals, you see underlying homologous structures, such as the limb structure in all of these different limbs. You can see that the whale has one bone followed by two bones, wrist bones, and then digits. And all the rest of these animals do too. Like the horse has one bone, two bones here, and then this is basically a long phalange. And so all these underlying bone structures are modifications from an original structure. And so the underlying structure here is all homologous. And that's in comparison to analogous structures. Analogous structures may perform the same function, but they're not derived from the same underlying structure. This slide is particularly good because it shows some bone similarities, right? So the bone structures here are homologous, but the overall structures have some analogous pieces to them. Like the wing of an insect is made of chitin, whereas feathers are basically modified scales, and then wings of a bat, for example, are basically basically webbing between the fingers of the animal. There's also evidence that you can get from embryology. If you look at embryos of different animals, you can see that embryos share some underlying homology that these sharks, lizards, chickens, pigs, and humans even embryos develop in similar ways, and that implies common ancestry. The last piece is to differentiate between derived and ancestral traits. And you can look at a particular group of organisms here, and you can say that hair is the most derived trait that separates out leopards here, whereas for turtles and leopards, the amniotic egg is an ancestral trait. But again, amniotic egg is also a derived trait for all tetrapods, who all have 4 legs. And jaws are a derived trait for all the fish, which include lampreys, which don't have jaws. And so the difference between a derived and ancestral trait is one of comparison. And those really are the main things that we have not covered. Now you should look in your book to make sure that you understand those things, and be sure to ask questions the next time we have class. Thank you very much.